Hi guys, and welcome to my last video for Com 322. This is where we review the last little bit of content. I walk you through some information for the final exam, and I wish you the best of luck with your final. So let's get started. As a reminder, the final exam is on Blackboard on Friday, June 16th from 8 to 8 p.m. Please review my late test policy and my makeup test policy. Basically, I don't allow makeup exams. I give you the entire day. So if for some reason you think that there's going to be a problem later in the day, I expect that you will get up at 8 a.m. and take the exam. In addition, if for some reason you have technology malfunctions, you need to email me within an hour of taking the exam. You should allow for 100 minutes. It will shut down on you at 100 minutes and just record what you did. And remember, unlike the quizzes, there is no backtracking. You got to answer each question as they come. You can, of course, use your notes and, use your study guide and all that kind of stuff, but you will absolutely not be allowed to go back. A few other things. I've said it before and I'm going to say it several times on this PowerPoint. You can study your quiz answers. I put sample full credit quiz answers on Blackboard, and I'll be loading up the sample quiz answers for quiz 8. I won't do the food ink because I'm putting everyone's answers right in track changes right in their documents, but I will load up the sample quiz answers for quiz 8 in just a little bit. You should take a look at the test 1 sample answers. In the test 1, you should be able to define and apply and come up with an example for every single thing on your study guide. And you should also look at the Blackboard discussion board with the sample test questions that is labeled quiz 10. Quick note on that. Some of you have already posted questions, and I have gone in there and corrected some of them and let you know that you need to do them again. Guys, you really shouldn't be posting sample study questions if you are not exactly 100%, maybe 110% that the answer is correct. And where I'm seeing a lot of errors is on Black Excellence. And it is clear to me that you have written that question and that answer and not reviewed the sample answers from quiz 7 or even the video that I posted in which I review quiz 7. So make sure that you have all your ducks in a row if you're going to write a question about something. Also, don't forget, your infographic is also due on Friday, although I think the Dropbox thing is up on Blackboard, so you might even be able to submit now. I can't remember if that's done, but don't forget, don't lose sight of that, because that's also worth 100 points. Also, don't email me about your grades, guys. I will get them done as soon as I possibly can. I hope that you have noticed that I turn things around very fast. I mean, with the Problem Solver project, I needed a few more days, but basically I grade everything the day or the night that it's due. And I tried to do that with the final exam and the infographic, but it will take me a little bit longer, so please be respectful. Okay, yeah, just don't forget this stuff, guys. The questions on exam 1, if you lost points on your short answer in your essay, it was probably because it just wasn't specific enough. So make sure that you are modeling your answers after the full credit answers that I have shown you. You should always, always, always root things in class material. You should be redundant. You should be repetitive. You should always use the author's names and the article's names. That's what I'm going to be looking for. Remember, the quizzes are something that we call formative assessment. It is something that it moves you from kind of beginner knowledge, and it tells you what you don't necessarily know, and it moves you to be able to excel and really be an expert on the exam. So make sure that you are doing the work needed on those short answer and essay questions. All right. Oh, you probably can't see that, huh? This is what the breakdown is. There's 20 multiple choice questions worth about 2 points each, which should make people feel pretty good because that's typically where a lot of you have the problems. And that's worth a short amount of, or smallest amount of points. And we got 10 short answers worth 5 points each. And again, just like exam 1, there's 1 essay. All right, I would expect that you can define and provide examples of these things, and I want to walk through some information because this is where we're really struggling. So I saw a lot of people misunderstand third wave feminism. Third wave feminism is from that girl power unit from the gender and sexuality unit a couple weeks ago. Third wave feminism is typically thought of as third wave feminism that's happening kind of like right now. The term was coined in 1991, but it didn't really become a fully fledged academic thought until a little bit later. So third wave feminism typically is associated with the time period that we're in right now. It's typically associated with younger women and men, and it's typically thought of as more multicultural and more sensitive to diversity and international issues. So like second wave feminism, for example, which is typically associated with the 60s and 70s, largely ignored sexuality, and third wave feminists are typically pretty in tune to sexuality. But for the purposes of our class, what's really important about third wave feminism is that they use the media. So they use it not only for activist purposes, but they're also really interested in seeing media messages that represent feminist ideals. And that's why we talked about third wave feminism when we learned about kind of that girl power TV. So if you cannot talk extensively about third wave feminism, you should go back to the Prezi from that Girl Power unit, and there's like a little video on there that explains what third wave feminism is. There's several pieces of information that you should review. All right, Black excellence. This is a big one. A lot of you got it wrong on the quiz. I did a review video in which I covered it, and a lot of you are getting it wrong on the discussion boards. Black excellence is not a good thing, guys. Black excellence is something that is imposed on Black individuals, or probably people of color more generally, by society and the media, where they expect people of color to be bigger, better, more successful, to give them the same types of respect that they give white individuals. Remember that article talked extensively about how successful Serena Williams is, that her winning and her success is unprecedented, and yet her endorsement deals were still second to Maria Sharapova, and at one point Anna Kournikova, who wasn't even in the top 100. Okay, so Black excellence is this unfair expectation that people of color have to be even better than their white peers. Cycle of food. This, I will only give you full credit if it's a short answer or an essay if you talk about the wages, okay? So it's more than just food being cheap and then being dangerous and being unhealthy, but it's also because our system is propped up on this big business food model. These big businesses and corporations pay people very little, and that means all we can afford is kind of cheap and unhealthy and dangerous food. I want to make sure that everybody understands kind of girl power. So girl power is typically a good thing. It's like the Clarissa Explains It All, the Ginger, like those types of shows on Nickelodeon that they were talking about. But remember that it's very easily co-opted. And that's why you read the second article about businesses who are kind of using feminism to sell us stuff, So it's like, oh, here, you're empowered. Well, like buy this brand of tampons or buy this brand of shampoo. And so you want to make sure that you have a very nuanced understanding of girl power. And the last one, which I know it's not on my screen, is hypermasculinity. Hypermasculinity is not just being a man or, being tough. Hypermasculinity is this exaggerated performance of maleness. And your reading for that week says that it's predicated typically on three main behaviors. One is kind of like this really kind of buff, athletic, muscular body. The second one is that it's like that these types of men really enjoy danger. And the third is that they have a callous attitude toward women and men. And so it could be that I ask you not just for a definition of hypermasculinity, but that I ask you to give me a character that is hypermasculine and explain what about his performance links to the reading of hypermasculinity, right? Or it could be that I don't just ask you to define girl power, but that I ask you to give me an example not used in the reading of another character on television or movies that represents the same characteristics as Clarissa Explains It All, for example. And so you need to talk about how that character is contradictory, that character is complicated, that character rejects boys, that type of stuff. So it's not just about being able to define these things. It's also about being able to provide an example and knowing what an example is when I give it to you. All right, so I'm not going to review an essay, but what I am going to review is how you should write it, okay? So my essays are very, very specific. And so what I want is that you actually pay attention to what the question is asking, okay? And then typically you're going to have 3 or so paragraphs in the essay, right? So you might say, if I, ask you like I did on the first exam about the Goldie Blocks commercial, like what do you agree or do you like this or whatever, so it's like maybe you start there. You say, okay, I think this commercial is arguing this. I agree, or I think it's a positive representation. And then you have a new paragraph where you say, here's 2 or 3 class concepts or class readings that help me make that argument. And I'm going to explain what those class concepts are. And then the final thing, the kind of the trifecta, the really important thing is that you're able to show in the text of the commercial or whatever it is I'm asking you to analyze, how that lines up with class material. Okay, so you're like here, and a lot of you use the feminist perspective for the Goldilocks thing. So then you're like, okay, here's the feminist perspective talks about the gender system. The feminist perspective talks about patriarchy. The feminist perspective talks about gender norms. And so you use those three things, gender system, patriarchy, and gender norms, to actually talk about the commercial. All right. And that's really what a lot of you are missing. Okay, that's all I got for you. Go forth, do well, and I'll talk to you soon.